Hey, and welcome to this episode of Co-Creating with the AI. I'm Martin, and with me is, as always, my co-host Rasmus. How are you today, Rasmus?
Good, thanks. A little bit too much coffee, so hopefully I won't be too speeded when we're speaking. But otherwise, good. Lots of fun stuff happening. How are
Awesome.
you?
I'm really good too, enjoying the nice, finally warm spring weather we have here in Sweden, and also having a really productive day at work, and that combination is unbeatable.
Yeah, there's something like I think that's also funny with kind of the AI connection. I think that like there's a sense of gratification by in getting a lot done, right?
Yeah,
And when I should say figure out these places where AI really helps me get a lot of stuff done in a short amount of time. There's like a sense of I don't know, almost grandness, like wow, I could
yeah,
do this.
and this actually is the like could say part of the topic of today's episode. We're going to talk about real world use cases of AI, real world stories where AI played a major role that we've heard or experienced ourselves. And I think that you should kick that off, Rasmus, with your first real world example of AI usage.
Sure, I have two stories that I've heard lately from people that I know well. I'll start with the less spectacular one, just to open up. I think. So there's a friend of mine who, or actually two friends of mine who run a startup together. I don't know, maybe 6-10 people. Got a few hundred users of their product, and now they're going to do product planning. Like, how are they? Like, what are they going to do next? And what they did was actually they took all of their surveys because they were sending surveys in the style of Superhuman, if you know that way, like product market fit surveys. I mean, I know you do, but like as the listeners, it's basically um, a survey where you ask how sad would you be if you could no longer use the product, and then ask for very very specific input to help you prioritize work forward. So they took all the survey results they had, and they also took the transcripts of the interviews that they like the deep customer interviews that they had a fewer amount of, less amount, and they just fed it into ChatGPT, and then they iterated a little bit with the ChatGPT to produce suggest a product plan. And the funny thing is, was the next thing he said, yeah, that's been the last 4 months for us. It's just doing that list, one thing after another. And I was like, wow, you really replaced in many ways a product manager. Like the most important part of a product manager is taking all that input and deciding what to do next. At least you could argue.
Mm.
I think it's a large part of it. And of course, in the context of everything else that's going on. And I don't know if ChatGPT did some market analysis there. I'm not sure what like the process they did to get to a good result is, but it's interesting that also they, as the whole company, because a startup is a lot about the product, pretty much aligned around doing what ChatGPT told them to do. So I don't know. I mean, maybe that's an overstatement, right? But it's pretty interesting. I don't know, creating your own kind of AI boss, or like how quickly like AI is starting to make decisions for us.
Yes.
I mean, like Google Maps is the best example. Like
Mm.
I barely drive on my own anymore. Like I let Google Maps tell me what to do, or where to drive, and I think that like that decision making capability is going to be brought into so many different aspects so quickly. And I think this is like was a very clear one for me when I was like, oh really, wow. Yeah, that's the first one that comes to
Yeah.
mind.
Awesome. And for me, like I am the, of course, the product manager of Multiply, and I do use ChatGPT and GPT-4 a lot for uh, basically trying out and getting input when I have an objective with the product, a new architecture. Like today, we talked about agentic AI architecture, and it's really awesome to feed the objectives into ChatGPT and ask for what is a strategy for this, or what is an architecture that would support this in our product. And you could also prompt it like, if you need additional information, ask me questions to get that information. And that means that um, you can get sort of a sounding board. Of course, it is co-creation, like the name of this podcast, that you're not abandoning your own reasoning and just leaving everything up to the AI to decide. But you are like definitely co-creating with the AI when you do that. And um, so like the reason why, like, that document I sent over to you, Rasmus, just before this recording session, is like 20 pages. I would never write 20 pages. Is that it's like it's sort of my own um, cut and paste from different parts of a conversation with an AI, and my when I and maybe that can be my first real world example of how to use AI. Like um, my
Actually, sorry, just like I
yeah,
want to just jump in, like before we leave the
yeah,
topic of the kind of the product manager and decision
yeah,
making, like just picking up on what you said is,
yes,
um, I mean, it's interesting because like taking the Google Maps example, I'm just
mm,
still deciding where I want to go,
yeah,
and for the time being, I'm still driving the car,
yeah,
right? And if I take the example I took, it's like they used Google Maps or ChatGPT in this case to formulate the way for how they get to where they want to go,
yes,
right? And using the data that they had, or in Google Maps, this has a lot of traffic data and maps data, etc., right? Using that data to sort of help you get to that goal. But the decision of where to go, and if you want to sort of go exactly with that plan, or if you want to add, when I drive to a country house, like how, like, do we want to make a stop on the way? Should
mm,
we, like all of these things, like it's really like, of course you could just like blindly just like, yeah, okay, it's usually right, da da da. But the good results, I think, as you say, come when you have that pairing, where you have someone who's very very good at what they do, having this like very very competent, you used the word before, I don't know what it was, but like if I would use my word as like sparring board, like
mm,
someone to bounce it with.
yeah,
um Anyhow, tangent, but I just thought it was interesting, like that came to me after you spoke.
yeah. And so what I do in order to ignite the co-creation with AI, and just to talk about this, how I work out a strategic document in my line of work, is that I have initial ideas, and I take notes on them, and then I feed the notes into GPT-4, and I rarely nowadays work with any other AI than GPT-4, because GPT 3.5 even is compared to GPT-4 is such a lower lower intelligence. Like it's like this GPT-4 stupid cousin from the country, and
I wonder if that's going to be considered discriminatory at
yeah,
some point.
exactly. Like,
What you
is
just
that
said.
gonna haunt me? And like, is the AI of the future gonna come punish me for talking derogatory about AIs? But like I'm okay, without resorting to
Sorry.
comparisons. I just think GPT-4 is a pleasant AI to work with. So no, but then I feed my notes into it and give it prompts like, provide a platform, provide a structure, or provide an architecture that would support these ideas, and that the output cut and paste into a document, and over time that builds into a refined strategy or a refined architecture by me, like taking that result and replacing my notes as the prompt with the latest rendition of that document and feeding that into the AI and then prompting it
Mm,
more. And it becomes a different way for me of working, where I my thoughts are expressed through the AI, through my prompt, and through what I select of the AI's output, rather than I write, of course, both the prompts and some of the content, but also that iterative process is for me super productive, both in terms of just the sheer detail I can capture, but with little effort, but also just like the sense of creativity and the quality of the output is actually higher, because we are two entities with different experiences um, and buckets of information to or background to work from. And I never like put the AI in the driver's seat, but I definitely take a lot of input. And for me, that is like it is a true co-creation that is largely amplified by how egoless the AI is. Like, and I wrote a blog post about this like over a year back, where um, this was my very early experience.
Yeah, I
That,
remember that. I
yeah,
remember this.
like you can ask the AI over and over, refine and refine, and it never gets annoyed. It never says um, hey, come on, like we I've done this text like 7 times now, like why aren't you happy with it? It's always
Mm.
pleasant, always apologetic when it's making mistakes. And I feel like people are that are complaining about the robustness or the correctness of AI, they're just not using robust enough processes and enough iterations, and not providing enough source material. But and and just on that topic, I heard when I was in a Discord for a super obscure group of people working with the latest, like with the Llama leak. The Facebook
Yeah,
Llama model
yeah.
was leaked, and the, I sort of ended up in a group of uh, like underground um, people working on training this model for their own uses. And one of them told a story of how he had he because it sort of generates that model is far from as good as the OpenAI GPT 3 and 4. And and he was sort of trying to push his boundaries and asking for the same thing over and over: generate this. And the AI was at first very, very like apologetic and saying like, okay, here's a new version. And when he kept going, it became a bit annoyed at him. And he was so happy about this that he just kept pushing. And in the end, the AI was like screaming back in all caps, like, "Hey man, I did I did this so many times now. Can you please shut up with this same sentence?" And he was just again and again pushing it.
But that's really interesting. Why does that come from? Okay, if we don't
Yeah,
like consider the apart from the like consideration that the AI is alive, which I would sort
it's
of
it's it.
say is
Yeah,
very unlikely. Is it because like when people are repetitive online, next word prediction would be
yes,
annoyance?
definitely.
Probably, right?
And what OpenAI
That's
called,
very
yeah,
interesting.
and that has been definitely like part of like what has been trained away from the official models from OpenAI. Like when they talk about alignment, a large part is to to create this blank, almost psychopathic face of I mean, never showing any other emotion than, "Oh, sorry, I did wrong." And it's trained on the
Yeah.
internet, right? It has access to a wide range of
Reddit and
responses.
stuff.
Like it
Yeah.
that would be a lot more natural and and so it's been definitely been like aligned towards yeah, just just being
I think
this.
it's actually it's a bit funny with like this what alignment means. Like there's a bunch of people
Mm,
who managed to jailbreak, Chat GPT or compare to just to be really rude, like to be
yeah,
like extremely because they sort of like it better when it's like telling them to do stuff and
yeah.
like being abrasive and they think it's really funny. And I imagine like if for like when 4chan or whatever Reddit
Yeah,
train their own model, right, like primarily on their data for their users,
yeah,
like and you sort of can hear Reddit speak, whatever kind of Reddit AI, right,
yeah,
or 4chan AI, God forbid, it's going to be so like abrasive in one of them at least, and very kind of blunt and with a very specific lingo in the other.
yeah.
Um, and I think this would like be anyhow. That's more on a general level.
I,
Let's like getting back to like to stories. I think
yeah.
like
I,
Oh wait, sorry, you were going to
yeah,
say
I
something
was
there.
gonna jump on that and talk about this. It reminded me about this hilarious prompt that is going around about where you claim to have this illness, uh, neuropsychosis
Yeah,
invertosis. Have you read that?
yeah, I
Read
saw
about that?
that.
That's
Yeah,
which, and you tell the AI. So when you're pleasant, actually hear it as being very impolite. So can you please um,
exactly.
respect my illness and be polite by doing the reverse because I am hearing it in the reverse, and and that bring out the worst. It is like, fuck, man, you're such a stupid like
Yeah.
person. Why can't you understand? And it is trying to do it to be its worst in order to be polite in this.
Yeah, exactly. The interesting, funny part there was like they were basically saying the worse language you use, the more
Yeah,
abrasive you are, the more pleasant it is
yeah.
for me. Which meant that it just kept going
Yes,
and being like much like using words and saying things that I mean wouldn't be considered as sanctioned by
yes,
OpenAI,
yeah.
to say the least. But I think it's like one point before we move on to other examples. I think like an interesting like of what you said before and how you worked with AI
Mm,
and is just I think it forces us to put sort of pen to paper in one sense. Like one of my favorite quotes is from an author I read called Jed McKenna.
mm,
Is like the mind or the brain is not no place for serious thinking. And it's
cool.
basing that on
Ah,
that you can only keep like seven things at a time in your brain,
yeah,
basically,
yeah.
which is why the brain tends to loop because you have the things there and like same thoughts, etc. Whereas, like at least for me, who from time to time have an overactive mind, like writing it out,
Mm,
or even more so, Miro is my favorite thing right now,
mm.
making flowcharts and like drawing things there. Um, can
That yeah.
really help. And AI forces me to do
Yeah,
that. Like
it
AI
gives
forces
you
me to express it
it gives
like in
you
the
a
real world.
it gives you a really good reward cycle for actually noting your thoughts.
Exactly.
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
Yeah, exactly. Anyhow, like just
Awesome.
like came to me when we were
Yeah,
speaking.
cool.
Um,
So
should I do like my other
yeah,
story?
so do your other
Yeah.
story.
So this like it also is like a little bit along the lines of just like taking like the imagination arc of like what it means to actually train specific, so to say, AIs using specific data and putting some kind of specific context around it, whether it's like you are this type, like you are an expert anthropologist, I don't know, like
Mm,
expert blog writer. um, we've all seen these prompts, um, and then now that it's more easier and easier to provide a data set. So this is a story I heard the other, like actually yesterday. Well, it's was a head of let's see, I don't like completely like tell who and where it is. Anyhow, it was the like a C-level position at a very big and successful growth company. Um, and this person had a lot of like expertise within analytics, data, tech, etc. And had been with the company for like I don't know 7-8 years. And then what they did when he was going to leave, like people in the team were like, "Fuck, this person is really great. Like we don't want to lose this competence." And then they hacked together some of the devs in his team, like basically took all of the data they had in the company systems on him, like all his comments in presentations, in GitHub, in whatever, all the documents he wrote, all the emails he sent, every piece of data they could um, get their hands on in their system, of course, like that's the company data. Um, so there was no violation involved. And then they did like apparently in an afternoon, I think they just embedded this data in some kind of vector database,
mm-hmm.
and then created a chatbot that was basic or used I hosted OpenAI, I think GPT-4 to say you are name this person. Basically, they probably had
This
some
is
more stuff,
super scary.
and then activated it,
Yeah.
and he could try. And then they started interacting with this. I'm not sure what the medium was. It was like they just put it in a chat interface or how they did it.
Mm,
Um, and he apparently tested it himself, and he was like, "Whoa, this is like me. This is me with a difference.
Also,
It's
so the
consistent.
person uh,
Yeah.
could he tested it himself or herself?
Yeah, they showed
Yeah,
it to him. They
yeah,
showed
all
it to
right,
him.
yeah,
And what he said was, first of all, whoa, spooky. Not like, oh yeah, this is not really me. More like, this is me. And the second thing was the difference is this: it doesn't have bad days. It has consistently my best quality.
mm-hmm.
It's like me on my best. Now I'm paraphrasing, but that's what I like. And this came, by the way, secondhand. Like the stories didn't come
Yeah,
directly from this person, but it was very fresh. So I mean, could be
mm,
factual detail errors, but in any case, like with our knowledge, this is definitely possible now,
mm,
right? I
yeah,
mean, we can like we could do this pretty quickly if we wanted to. Like we spent a week doing this, maybe,
yes,
or
yeah,
half a week for someone.
yeah. And so and it's sort of a it's the business um, plan of a really cynical startup, AI startup, like replace any employee leaving your company with an AI, and 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 like what's going to happen over time is companies are going to use it to reduce churn, and over time they're not going to replace people as much when they leave.
Yeah,
Like the
yeah.
turnover is going to turn into employee reduction instead, replacement with AIs.
Yeah, it's also nuts. Like, I don't know, like just spinning onto that. Like, I'm not sure. Like, I mean, first of all, like you have an issue here with data, right? Uh, from an
Mm.
individual point of view, because if I work for a company, the data is theirs.
Mm.
Like, it's in every standard employment contract. Like, our company owns our data.
Mm.
Like, actually, it does. Um, but still, like, is it allowed to train like a replacement for me based on my data?
Yeah.
Probably today. Yeah, it probably is. Probably I don't know if it should be.
Mm.
So that's like the first interesting like kind of question that comes from me. And then the second is, it's sort of the, I think we spoke about the Bruce Willis example before. Like, did I say that he sold his AI rights? This is like one of the
Yes.
first
Yes. Yeah.
episodes, I think.
Yeah.
Yeah. So he could potentially be an infinite actor. He could be,
Mm.
here in 10,000 years. So if, say, I work for a company and I'm just like I'm great at my job. Like I'm the
Mm.
world's best whatever salesperson.
Mm.
Then like actually cloning myself, like there could be like in the end like 1,000 people working
Mm.
everywhere. Do you know what I mean? And of course, like a higher state of that is just the specialized autonomous agents that incorporates all the best
Mm.
that are an amalgam or whatever you call it of all the best people in the profession. But
Mm.
there's something like I don't know. There's something very, very, very disruptive there, in like,
Yeah.
and like they can be disruptive very quickly. Yeah,
So,
I don't know. What do
is
you
that
think about
something
that?
we should start negotiating into our like whenever I'm negotiating with a new employer about the employee employment agreement, I'm gonna should I ask for my AI rights? Like for when you use
Yeah,
when you use my content that I produced, I want a salary, even if I drop out of the company. If you keep using my data, I want to keep 10% of my salary, 20% of my
yeah,
salary, because
yeah,
I is that something to negotiate for in the future of AI?
yeah. Probably, and like it's like, and also like data ownership. So it's interesting with like Reddit and all these guys starting to say basically, hey, these models can't use our data for free.
Mm.
And at some point, that has to sort of, in some way, or has to, but should
Mm.
trickle down to the individual, right?
Yeah.
That there is value in my data, and
Mm.
of course that will vary from person to person, but there's, I mean, going in and creating a lot of value and bringing myself to the table and making someone just like copy,
Yeah.
that's pretty crazy.
Rasmus, what I'm thinking now is like what you said, from your story, what they did was they scoured the entire company databases and Gmail systems for this person's data. But what we are actually working on with Multiply is to allow companies to feed their entire data into one sort of data lake and then build AI agents on top of it and work like efficiently co-creating with AI on top of the company's data. So, but and also we're working on agents that can do that for you. So what
Yeah.
happens instead of an AI agent, if I name the agent Rasmus and tell it like pretend to be Rasmus, like is like we're joking about this, but isn't it in reality what we're actually like? It could be. It's not something that you can build on top of the Multiply platform. It is in a sense what we are building with the Multiply platform.
Yeah, I mean, I think maybe what's happening is like, because I'm not spooked out by, we talked about that both last time and the one before. I'm not spooked out by autonomous agents. I think that will be like a huge boost
Yeah.
um, to both our like individual and collective potential.
Mm.
Um, I think there was just something, but maybe it's just like because all of a sudden you're like putting a name on it and making it so personal that it's trained on only this
Yes.
person's
Yeah.
data that it's like anthropomorphized
No,
type.
but
I can
and
never say make
then
the
but
word.
then
It's
we do
like,
that for every employee in the company, and then like
yeah,
they are like all of them are just talking to each other, all the autonomous agents named as us, and
mm,
then we can just like turn the light off and go home, and the company keeps
mm.
running.
Yeah, and I mean, why is that like? So take this person who say, let's say,
Mm,
was a head of something, head of
mm,
data or something. Like, of course, having 10 great heads of data and putting them together will probably be an even better head of data
yeah,
agent.
yeah,
It's just like, I think there's just like, there was something in that story
hmm,
that made it so personal.
yeah,
Do you know what I mean? It's not like, okay, yeah, we're going to automate some jobs that are like not necessary for people to do, and we can do other things.
mm.
There was another like sense of just like automating the person that just like, I don't know why,
Yeah,
but I haven't like that was one of the only times lately that it has been like, oh wow, yeah,
yeah,
that's possible now. And of course, you could just say, "Hey, this person left. We have trained a head of data that's an AI,"
mm.
and I don't know. I just think that's less. There was something very personal in that story that
So
sort of
does that
touched
mean
some nerve in me.
does that mean that the next genre of NFTs is going to be like personal data, like all the documents you produce, like the entire set of
Yeah.
documents for a specific super high end, I don't know, yes, let's say like
Mm.
head of data, like you can buy or rent a copy of this data for this amount of money and use it for AI training. Like, is that going to really happen now that data is going to turn into equity?
Yeah, I mean, maybe I think like I mean, you know this stuff as well. Like at least currently, NFTs would be very bad suited. But there's, I mean, actually, the vector databases, they're pretty efficient, right? You could probably put that pretty efficiently on some blockchains, which would consist like collect like a person's say or a company's data up for sale. But yeah, I think it's like this is probably another episode. We're running up in 30 minutes, but
Yeah.
I think there's something to dive into with like data ownership
Mm,
and like just finishing like they used to really say data is the new oil,
yeah.
but everyone was like, yeah, whatever, right?
Mm,
Yeah, okay, you have a few companies that can do some cool stuff, Facebook can optimize their newsfeed, but now like it
mm,
really really quickly becomes that data is extremely valuable,
yeah.
unless it's very, very widely available. So as long as there is private data ownership in some form, you know, like both for companies and individuals, that's going to be hugely
Mm.
valuable, like hugely, hugely.
Awesome. I feel like it's time to round off there. This has been for me a hilarious episode to record. I hope our listeners are enjoying it as well. And if you have any stories to share from the world of AI, then as always, you can email me and Rasmus at our first names at multiply.co, and tune in to the next episode. We're going to talk about co-creating with AI then as well. Thank you, Rasmus.
Great. Thanks, Martin. This was fun.